Hi, good morning. My name is JulieTalbert, and I am representing the Heart of Texas Workforce Development Board and our JARC project, the Highway 6 to Success. We also were the first agency in our region to receive a JARC award. And so over the last 2.5 years that we've had this in process, I have become completely convinced that I just don't know how this happens without the involvement of workforce boards and other JARC projects. I think it is absolutely critical to access the business relationships that are available through the workforce boards, as well as some of the funding that's available for what we call in the workforce world supportive services. The very basis of what workforce boards do is connecting job seekers with business opportunities. When we started our project, we were hearing directly from job seekers and our caseworkers through the one-stop systems that they were not able to meet their performance measures, or they were struggling. They had job seekers and they had jobs, but what was the most critical issue they were facing in many of our rural areas was the mobility of the workforce. And so we were very aware of the fact that we needed to do something about that. If we were going to change what was happening out on the ground, we needed to bring this public transportation service to the customers. And so we embarked on a pilot project that was funded by a JARC contract that runs 6 times a day from Waco into the Marlin area and back. And then we also had an interest in a new employer that had just moved to our region, Sanderson Farms. They're a poultry processing plant, and we targeted this industry initially because of the match between residents in parts of Waco and then, of course, in the Falls County area that were a good match for a low-skill, entry-wage paying position. And because Sanderson Farms was off the current urbanized system, we knew that this was going to be a real challenge for their hiring. They had a plan to hire about 1,200 individuals, and we knew that the mobility of the workforce was going to present a real challenge to them as the months went by. And so they became our primary employer that we targeted to involve. This conversation that we've been having with Sanderson Farms over the last several years has gone slowly but consistently, and I'm happy to say at this point Sanderson Farms is our largest private business contributor as far as cash contribution into the service, and really has asked for us to use them as a leader in our region to step out and encourage and involve other private businesses to do what they've done, because they now really understand the benefit and the value of this service to their bottom line. For Sanderson Farms to understand the impact, looking at the line item on their budget for this service, not focusing on that so much, but on the reduction of their cost of turnover, which is quite high. And this is a really important conversation to have with businesses who don't understand what the value of public transit might be and why they would be contributing to this. If they're looking at that line item on their budget as simply a cost, you're not going to get very far in the conversation with them. And so you need to be able to turn that around and talk about the value of the service to their bottom line. For those who are receiving JARC grants or are familiar with the project, you know you have to put together a budget where 50% of the budget is coming from local in-kind or cash contributions. And as I mentioned, Sanderson Farms is a cash contributor. The Workforce Board, we in-kind a lot of staff time to the oversight of this project and the administration of it and some of our outreach. And then the cash contribution that we put into the project comes from our TANF allocation. In addition to that, while we were putting this together, workforce boards are very interested in training opportunities and education for customers. And so we involved from the very beginning our community college as well as our technical school to talk about them about what their current needs and issues were. And part of it, of course, is expanding their student population as well as retaining students. And so their involvement in the project, they contribute both cash and in kind when they go out in the spring semester to recruit from the area high schools along this route. They take out materials and they're able to address with the younger population. Many of those are eligible for our Workforce Investment Act in-school and out-of-school projects. They're able to talk directly to the students about how transportation is not a barrier for them taking advantage of some of these educational opportunities, and also our summer youth programs that have been very successful getting them into Waco to take advantage of some of these. In addition to that, bringing public transportation into a new market, we also knew the 3-year funding period for the JART projects. It takes time to build ridership and to sustain a project beyond that 3-year time. And so we were very aware of the fact that we needed some private business supporters in the Marlin area and throughout Falls County. And so we went out having visits one-on-one with various local banks in the area as well as insurance companies and the local hospital, talking to them about the value of this. The banks and the insurance companies were very different obviously from Sanderson Farms. They weren't looking for employees. What they're looking for is customers. And so the conversation we were having with the banks was, what happens to your customer base when in a very low income earning community, you all of a sudden have opportunities to employment, not just at Sanderson Farms, but the stop that the service makes when it first comes into Waco is at the Waco Transit Terminal, where people are able to get off at no other cost, transfer to the 8 other fixed routes that are available, and get to the schools or to any other employment destination in Waco. This really keyed in for the banks and the insurance companies for 2 reasons. They saw a real return on that investment for their customer base, for economic development in their communities, and really spoke to their civic duty. They're living in a community. Most of them have been there for a generation or many more generations. They're very concerned about the sustainability of their city and what's happening to it. And so it really spoke to both their business need and also their commitment to doing something, giving back to their community. And so we brought all these partners on. We had about 22 partners with our initial proposal 2.5 years ago. And even though our economy was as it was and is, we kept all of our partners on for our proposal that was due in December, as well as added quite a few new partners.